The first thing is learn, which is you will see what is the solution, learn about it. I will do a little bit about the comparison, which is will help you to understand about the differences between RDS and WVD. For someone who not familiar with this, so when I use the WVD, so it's actually stand for Windows Virtual Desktop, right? I will help you to understand about the architecture. The second thing is about the planning. Right? We make some decision when we do design, we do architecture, and from that architecture we go to deployment. And if you may know, right? So we have the current GA, which is non-ARM. ARM stands for Azure Resources Manager, right? And we have the Spring release, which is on April 30, right? That is, we will make some kind of comparison, yes, about the current one and the one which is still public preview. And the last one we will mention about the implementation, which is the practice, the best practice for deployment, for doing sizing, pricing, right? And we mentioned about the assessment toolkit, some kind of management tool. So to begin with this, let's have a look about the virtualization scenario. When we talk about when we want to use some VDI, we will talk about the scenario that we really want to look into it, right? The first scenario is about security and regulation, which is most focused on the FSI customer, which is a financial customer, the healthcare and government. The next scenario is elastic workforce, which is some company they go through M&A. They have the short-term employees, and they also work with partner and contractor who need the access to their company resources, their organization resources, right? They will have some specific employees who need to go on the field, who use their bring own device, right? Which is a laptop, tablet, mobile device, who work in contact center, who in the branch office, or someone who really want to do or doing the specialized workloads like engineer, like someone working with their own application, the legacy application, or developer who dev and test some software. The benefit of WVD is first, enable the multi-section Windows 10 experience. I mentioned this because only Microsoft right now, we provide the experience with multi-section on Windows 10. And we also provide the optimized experience for Office 365 Pro Plus compared to the other vendor. We support the Windows Server from 2012, R2. I mentioned R2, right? Or later. We really kind of flexible to provide you with the full section desktop to remote application. If you go with Windows Virtual Desktop, so we will get the Windows 7 Virtual Desktop with the free extended security update, which is really important to some FSI customer, the bank, insurance company, right? And we integrate with security and management feature and product in Office 365, in M365, and Azure. This is a list of supported OS, so you can have a look. Just quickly go through it. And when we talk about the Windows Virtual Desktop, is will be the mix of infrastructure in Azure, the platform as service that Microsoft provide to you to help you to manage the RDS control plane, with the Microsoft 365 component, which is conditional access, which is MFA, and Office 365 Pro Plus and more, right? Yeah, and Azure. So that actually bring the whole stack of Microsoft ecosystem into a solution that we can see. And many of the partner, the customer, they want to go with the WVD, and they have the same question like, hey, are we eligible to use it? What we need to acquire or buy to use it, right? So from the client perspective, the customer with Microsoft 365 E3, E5, or education customer, or even they go with the frontline worker, which is a frontline worker, the other name, right? And also the business premium, M365 business premium, or minimum, they need to have the Windows 10 VDA per user or Windows 10 Enterprise, equal with the Windows 10 education for A3 and A5. If they go with the server one, which is they bring the server to WVD, right? The virtualizer. So, hello, can you mute it? Okay. So with a server, they will need the RDS cloud license with SA, right? And that is for licensing. They also need the Azure credit, because that is required to host the VM on Azure. They can go with the CSP or EA, or they can reserve the instance to get up to 40 or 60% discount. Okay, so many of you may familiar with the RDS on-premise, right? Which is can be Microsoft RDS, can be Citrix, can be VMware. So what is the differences? What are the differences, right? So when we seek for the solution, when we compare something between the on-premise and the cloud, so on-premise one, we have a section-based computing, which is section-based desktop and remote application. We seeking for I'm not argue, but not fully kind of totally agree with like cost effective. The cost effective only for the large scale or the central management, right? And the VDI, which is the virtual desktop infrastructure, we host on premise on our PC, which provide pool or personal VDI running on the Windows client OS or even the server one. And in the cloud, right, everything is the same except the time that you have it, right? When you go to deploy something on premise, you need to make sure that you have the server, you need to make sure that the network, another thing, right, that is money and time. So in the cloud, which is using Azure, the remote desktop section hosts on Azure, and you will have minimum CAPEX, right? That is a CAPEX and OPEX, right? And in the end user perspective, they just access through the VDI through a browser or a client, which is really kind of wonderful and easy to use. And when you need to scale it, it's happen within kind of minute or hour, depend on the scale that the scalability that you make, right? But then it's really easy. Another kind of comparison about the RDS, we have Microsoft RDS with the RDS on Azure, but in context of using only Azure as infrastructure as service and Windows Virtual Desktop, right? So only Windows Virtual Desktop right now, we provide a Windows Client multi-section. We provide the Windows 7 with the free extended security update. So to make you becomes easier to understand, right? So on the left hand side is something that we have on the cloud. On the right hand side is something that we maintain in the DC, right? So about the Hyper-V, about the network, about the server equipment, about the storage, about the DC facility, everything we've been taking care of by the cloud, right? And with the on-premise client virtualization, you will have the remote desktop gateway to maintain it. You need to have the web access. You need to maintain a connection broker, some kind of operation management foundation, right? And that is hosted on the physical facility that you need to invest to. But right now, Azure taking care of it, taking care of your DC, right? You don't need to have DC or the server anymore. And with the WVD, right? We also, Microsoft provide the free WVD control plan. So you don't need to taking care of it anymore. So about the cost, about the effort that you need to put into it will be taken care of Microsoft. Okay. So go deeper into the WVD architecture. We have the high level architecture that we can show to you, right? On the left hand side, you will see that we have three major things about the architecture of Windows Virtual Desktop. The web access, the VDI control plan, which is with included web access, diagnostic, gateway, broker, and some network load balancing will be managed by Microsoft. That is a black box. And the customer, they will need to, or the partner will help the customer to provisioning the hospital to manage the VM, which is running Windows 7 and Windows 10 Enterprise, can be single or multi-section, it can be a Windows Server, and public, the remote application, taking care of the user. Everything will be kind of the customer and the partner can provisioning the hospital and managers, right? With a tool provided by Microsoft or our partner, our WVD value added partner. So to understand more into the way that they that we do authentication, right? So we have a flow of authentication. You can see that we have several devices that we can use to connect to the WVD. You can use a tablet, you can use iPhone, you can use macOS, you can use Windows, you can use Linux. Right? You can have the thin client, and you connect via HTML5 supported web browser, or with a Windows 10, you can use the RDS client that we public, or some Linux, we have an SDK, and we work with thin client, which is such as IGEL, and Dell and XP to make the WVD client work on the thin client device. Right? So you can use the multi-factor authentication, which is on the cloud, which is with Azure AD, to connect to the Windows Virtual Desktop service managed by Microsoft. In the past, we use Azure Traffic Manager, but right now we use Azure Front Door. So it's basically provide more information about the connection and give you the ability to make some kind of tag on the connection. In the Windows Desktop service, we have the AD Web, the gateway, the broker, and the diagnostic, and the metadata. So with this one, if the customer is government, so in the past, in the V1, we public, right, the GA one. the metadata will store in US. But right now with V2, they have more choice to decide where's the metadata stored. It can be US, it can be Europe, it can be Singapore. So when they go through the Azure front door with the gateway, right, the broker, so it's basically get you into the hospital section host. And from here, you will use, if you go with the identity strategy like hybrid one, you use the AD that you have in the Azure, in the AD on-premise to log into this hospital VM. Or if you go with the AD purely Azure AD and Azure Domain Service, you use the same Azure AD to connect and also to get into the VM hospital. For V1, in the past, we have a couple partner. One of them is Sepago, provide you with some dashboard on the using the log analytics, using some client that you need to install in the agent that you need to install in the VM, right? To provide you the dashboard for monitoring, reporting, and things. And also we have public some management UI, which is I will mention in the third topic. But then with the V2, we try to bring new feature in terms of management and also in terms of reporting. So you don't need to use depend on the customer requirement, right? But at least you don't need to use the third-party tool, which is help you to reduce the cost of Azure using this consumption of Azure credit, right? So the Azure Active Directory will sync if you go with the on-premise AD or you spin up the VM, which is the Active Directory on the cloud on Azure, right, in the same subnet of the VM hospital. So it's basically using the AD Connect to sync the object, right, for you to do verification, authentication, and then get into the hospital VM. For connecting between the on-premise environment, between the cloud environment, we use the VPN side-to-side, or the customer can go with Express route. So that is the option. They can use Azure firewall, or they can bring their own firewall at the virtual app to the cloud and use it. So the table will give you the insight about the data flow, the protocol that we use, the encryption that we use, the port that we use, right? So as I mentioned earlier, with the WVD, it's more secure, right? We use the revert connection. So there is no RDP public port. They only use the secure port 443. So that's the reason why WVD is more secure than the other remote desktop solution. Yeah, and I mentioned you can use you can access the WVD through by using the MFA or via some do authentication via the Capital. To talk a little bit about the V2. So with the V2, we have updated object model. So you cannot see the resources, the desktop section, the remote app of the V1 on the V2. It's completely different. I call it the new, not new solution, but new approach. So you need to use the new client, the new URL to access and see the WVD resources. Some feature support is like because they go with the ARM, so basically they support the user group. In the past, in the WVD V1 in the GA version, we only can assign individual user, not a group of user. Right? We provide a new feature of integrated PowerShell which is the PowerShell core. We integrate with the Azure Monitor with the log analytics because of the ARM. So we use the Azure role-based access control, and with the Lighthouse capability, we support to create and manage a diagnostic with the V2 is better than V1. And in the client, the RDS client, because of the front door, as I mentioned, they provide the information about the connection and latency. Right. So that is the easier comparison table that you can get to compare if you have the customer already adopted WVD with V1, right? So V1 with a non-Azure resource management base, which is only can public the application with the individual user, and the new one with the user group, right? The admin asset control, the WVD is custom role, provide some custom roles, but in the ARM, because of the ARM, right? So we go with the Azure role-based access control built-in, and also the custom role. With the PowerShell, in the non-ARM is separate PowerShell module, and in the ARM one, we go with the PowerShell core, which is you can definitely set up a tenant and do some PowerShell thing on macOS, because the macOS version of PowerShell is PowerShell core. For a management UI, with separate management web UI that you need to do setting up, you need to run some script that we'll mention on the section. But in the ARM base, it's basically integrated into Azure portal. You don't need to set up it separately. For a monitoring perspective, is because that integrated it into the Azure portal using the Azure Log Analytics, using some Azure monitoring service. So it's better. And with the WVD metadata storage, the non-ARM only for store the metadata in US, but ARM, they give you the choice to choose to select the geo for storage. So there is the V1 object model. You can see that is the tenant related to the Azure AD tenant and subscription. The hospital will be with the resources group for VM and image. The section host will contain a set of application on the image, and user section will connect to some kind of public desktop or public application that you have. With the V2, the object model change, right? So the subscription support with the Azure Lighthouse, we will have a workspace, we'll have a hospital tied to the subscription, not tied to the tenant and tenant group, right? And we have the app group, and we have a section host. So all resources have the resources group and location associated with it. So that is the ARM. That is the major change between the V1 and V2. For some blog that we published recently, we have some kind of wonderful article to show the customer and sort of partner to leverage on the Azure firewall to control the network, right? To protect the WVD environment. So one partner who is CSP partner, who service provider partner, can actually go there, set up for the customer individually or their CSP customer the WVD, and provide the security service through Azure firewall. We have some references architecture. We recommend that if you can go with the Azure HubSpot model, go with single one, right? Dedicate one for WVD only. You consider to use the VPN peering and also understand about the limitation. You need to make sure that you control the internet and internet traffic with a firewall, can be some kind of virtual application firewall, or using AZURE firewall, right? Some customer want to make sure that the connection not go through the public internet, right? They, because of some regulation that they have, some compliance policy, or some security requirement. So you can achieve that with private link. Another solution, which is help the customer who using the endpoint, who kind of really don't want to public the connection via the internet, right? To adopt, but keep in mind the private link is still in preview. About the identity strategy that I will mention next topic, you can go with the hybrid identity, with the hybrid AD using AD Connect, or you go with the AZURE ADDS. It depends on the customer choose which one. And some limited outbound port that we can open, right? DNS, LDAP, SMB, or even V2 of SMB, XTTPS will be required. You will find that in WVD requirement for connection and some of the other thing. Okay, so we go through the WVD deployment. Inside of the deployment, I will go with the V1 and V2. Within V1, I have some recording. With V2, I will do some live thing, and we will see, right? Before I go to the deployment, we have some requisition to deploy WVD. The first is to the right, not to the right, but to the best fit of identity. You can go with the hybrid one with a connection between the on-premise DC to the cloud, or you spin up the VM, which is AD on the cloud, and do AD connect to AZURE AD, or you pure AZURE AD with AZURE ADDS, right? Depend on the customer business requirement and technical requirement. You know about that WVD. We're not support the user dig profile anymore. So the technology that we use is APAC logic profile. And to host the profile, the new profile, they can choose the storage, which is the file server or AZURE file. But with the AZURE file, they need to go with AZURE ADDS, right? Or they use the AZURE NetApp files. And we need to make sure that when we go through the deployment and setting up, the provisioning, the hospital, everything, we need to have some permission and credential for the subscription admin, AZURE AD, global admin, Active Directory administrator, and WVD tenant admin. That is some right and mission on the credential that we need to have. Some customers, some partner, they come to me and they said that, hey, if we don't have the kind of the dream environment, which is everything is out there, enough to use or more than enough to you, right? Which is really good scenario. So with a minimum requirement, we have some critical component for deployment. So I list some critical one here, which is the identity one with the AD domain and AD connect sync, with the AZURE subscription connect to the AZURE AD tenant. Can be some problem because some customer in specific region like Myanmar, they don't have the AZURE public in their country. They cannot buy or use AZURE from the Myanmar, right? So they need to buy another subscription in Singapore and provide it back. And they have a problem with the existing AZURE AD, which is tied to Office 365, existing Office 365, right? So I'm not go deep into it, but there is something that that critical that I mentioned here. The Azure subscription need to connect to the Azure AD tenant. The VNet setup and ready. SMB file share for user profile with APAC logics. You can go to the S2D cluster Azure files. Right? Licensing, you need to check on the Windows 10 VDA for minimum, or the best fit is M365 license with a customer to access to WVD. If the customer need to set up the VPN side to side or spread route, it can take 2-3 days to up to 2 weeks, depend on the network provider. MFA and connection conditional access, not required to have, but if you consider about the security, it's must have. And domain controller, some domain controller requirement. APAC Logic. So Microsoft acquired APAC Logic company. So right now it's free to use. So we have the major deployment step that you need to look into. The first step I mentioned is identity. Choose the right identity strategy. Make sure that you have a right permission and credential in the right user, right? And then you go to create a tenant, you provisioning the hospital, and then you do some configuration with the profile storage. So to go with the WVD V1 or V2, that is something that you need to do. First, rent the Azure AD consent, which is belong to V1. V2 you don't need to. Assign a tenant creator, which is you need to do even with a V1 or V2, and create your tenant using PowerShell or using the UI on the Azure portal. We publish some script that you can use to create and update the VM for the hospital, to scale the hospital with the script. But now with the Spring update, so there is some option to scale out your hospital, and you don't need to rerun anything or do anything. You just specify how many VM that you want to add. Right, that is the benefit from the V2, which is the ARM version. To do scaling, even you go with script, or you go with Nerdio, which is a WVD's value-added partner, they will need to use some Azure feature belong to Azure Automation, Azure Webhooks, and the Azure Logic apps, right? I will quickly go through this, set a slide later, and you can have a look on WVD scaling, how it's work. Right? A little bit about the APAC Logic profile. So the profile will store in the VXD or virtual disk or the VXDX. Right? The same approach used by the UBD. So if you have the user profile disk, you can basically, we have some guidance for you to migrate to APAC Logic. It will, the profile will be mounted, attached when they do the login, and with the APAC Logic technology, so it's faster compared to the own star function, that is the word that I use for the UBD, right? It just attach, and when you log out, it detect, right? The size of the profile then doesn't impact the logon time. What does it matter? Is it really kind of important, because when you go with a heavy workload, like you're using some Adobe with design something like, or doing some kind of video editing, right? So with the heavy workload require you to use a GPU, the APAC Logic profile will show you the best advantages compared to the UPD, and you will see, right? We provide the caching with the window cache manager. We provide the Outlook cache. You can do some configuration on it. And with the cloud cache, actually, if something impact to your on-premise AD, the user log into hospital VM still not impact for a while, right? Not impacted for a while. And profile container redirect everything from the user profile and so on. So with the APAC logic profile, we have the profile container, we have app masking, we have some Java redirection. So that is the way that you go to set up the V1 non-ARM. For someone not familiar with the Azure and you want to find the tenant ID, you can use that web page. But I believe that you have a skill set and also experience on portal.azure.com. So you just go to portal.azure.com, go to the Active Directory, Azure Active Directory, property, and you can find the tenant ID, the AD on ID on it, and the subscription will provide you with the tenant ID. You do the same. So in this step, you assign the Windows Virtual Desktop into the enterprise application. Provide the credential, the required credential and permission. So right now, in the best practice way, right? The admin will become, you can assign the admin to become the tenant creator, but we need to have at least 2 tenant creator, right? If you got locked out and you don't have a password or something happened with you, so the other one can take care of it. That is some script that you need to run. The script is also public on our blog and also on the doc.microsoft.com. So when you try to install the module of the ADIS infra with the PowerShell, right, on the V1, so it's basically will ask you to sign in, and when you sign in, you can see the tenant, and you can create a tenant. After you create a tenant, you go back to provision the hospital. So the icon with the red one, you see that is a V1. The virtual will be the blue one. So it's here, you give the default desktop user, you create a resource group. The location can be US or can be Southeast Asia or East Asia, depend on your customer, the location of customer. So we recommend that we create the hospital, the location of the hospital, near it to the location of the customer, the end user, right? With the VM size, if you don't have experience, so we recommend to go with default. I also provide some information about the recommendation, the default value that Microsoft will offer you. You can choose to use the OS image from the gallery, or you do your own custom image. And after that, you will see that you will do authentication through a tenant and do the validation for the template, and then deploy it, provision the hospital. So this process will take you around 12 or up to 15 minutes. Okay, so now we will see what happened with the V2. So let me get my tenant here. Right, so inside of the portal.azure.com, I have the VM, which is I spin up for the DC ADDC on the cloud. Right. So when I I I I created VM running the Windows Server 2016, right? And I use this as the Active Directory on the cloud. So this approach only recommend for a small customer or for the POC purpose. When you create this and install some kind of AD DS and some setups the domain controller, right? What you need to understand and also be cautious, like the virtual network subnet, right? You will need to use the same subnet to allow the VM hospital to join to see is DC and to join. And you will see the private IP address here, 10.0.3.4, right? So actually, inside of the subnet, I go to the subnet, right? Inside of the subnet on the DNS server, I will do some kind of, if you not do the custom, so Azure will provide a default DNS server. And when you let it go with a default, the VM host will never successfully join to the ADDC. It will cause of the common failure. So here I put the IP, the private IP of this ADDC into the DNS server of the VNet. Okay. So what I do next? So I search for Windows Virtual Desktop, right? The blue one is the V2. So this is the V2, right? Some of you will see a lot of setup script on or tutorial on YouTube or some channel from our MVP or Microsoft folks. So I get it done quick, right? You create a host pool for someone who not is the first time that you get into it. So that is basically something that I already create, right? Or you can create a new resources group, the host name, the host pool name. So you basically can put a host pool name here. So for the V2, right now we only support for the US region. That's the reason why we said that if the customer go with the production pilot or they need to use it within 4 weeks before end of June. So then I recommend to go with the GA version. If the customer want to do the BOC and they're looking to using it, they are looking to using it like after June. So you suggest them to go with the V2. In the hospital type, you have the personal and the pool. So basically I go with the multi-section and the pool. So then I choose pool, right? Or you can go with the personal one. You can do assignment type like automatically or directly, but I go with a pool. I need to put in I did it optional, but I need to put in the maximum section limit. I put in 2. The breadth and the depth. So the breadth will be provide the best experience. The depth will be provide the most the largest scale. So give you many as you can with the section. So I go with the breadth first for user experience optimize. So with this, if you choose to add the virtual machine, right? So you can see the suggestion here. I will keep it. The number of the VM, I will choose 3 or 4 or 2, depend on the customer sizing and performance they need, right? The name prefix, WVD 00. Okay, depend on and the gallery. You can use the image from the storage blob, or you can use Azure Image Builder, or you can use a share image, which is upcoming support. In this scenario, I go with the existing image that we have in the Azure gallery, which is the the Windows 10 Enterprise with Office 365 Pro Plus. Okay, and then here is OS disk type. So I go with standard one. The standard one is good enough. And then with this, you saw it, right? The virtual network. I will use the same VNet that I use for the Azure ADDC. The subnet that I use belong to the VNet and the public IP. So this one, if you choose yes, so the VM you create and you assign to the hospital will have the public IP, and you can actually remote to that VM through the remote desktop client. Okay, but because of the security reason, so I put it no. So you only can connect to the VM via the WVD control plane. You can choose the network security group. I leave it basic, right? The public inbound port, no. And if you have, you use the hybrid AD, right? So you can specify your domain or your OU, organization unit here. I don't have the OU, but if you have, you can put it here. And this administrator account is belong to the on-premise AD that I have, or the VM ADDC, right? So local admin, local. Okay. With the V2, you need to have the workspace and assign the desktop application or remote application into that workspace. Otherwise, you won't see it appear on the remote desktop web page. So I have the existing one here, or you can create a new one. WVD 00 Ryan. All right, with attach here for you to do some configuration. If you use the Azure firewall, you do some network restriction with the Azure firewall, so you need to use attach here. I'm not going to use it, but then you can use it. And we're just waiting for validating the template and click create. Because I already have it here, so let me use this, because my credit right now is 24. So allow me to use the existing one. With the hospital I already created is here. The hospital with the resources group, with the subscription I have, with a poll, right? It's a poll breakfast. It's only one application, which is the full desktop application that I created. You can click into this hospital. The beauty of this is you go to the property, you can actually do the RDP setting, which is with the V1, you need to do it through the PowerShell. But with this one, you can do it here. The audio output, you also can play the sound in this computer or on the remote computer. Smart card for some authentication, for public-led authentication, printer, clipboard. But this printer, right, is basically if you use on the WVD without any kind of AZ printer solution or thing. So basically we download a PDF file, and when you do it, it will be the data transfer out. So be careful. And you can manage the application group here. I have an application group with 4 users and the section host. I have 2 section hosts and 1 active section that I'm using right now to do the demo. So everything is here, ready for you, right? You want to add more workspace, you want to add more resource group, right? You can just click on it. No more like PowerShell. In this resources group, location and thing. If you go with the remote app, because I already have a desktop app, so there is a remote app that I create, and I go to assign to someone. I will assign to Ryan. Yep. And then the application that I want to create is here. From start menu, we have a couple choice. Or this favorite application that I love, Paint. Or you can define with a file path. It depends on your and require a command line or not. Save. Assign to workspace, the existing one that I create, and then create. We wait for the validation passes, and then we create. Okay, so when we're waiting for this deployment, you can see there is a remote desktop client that I download. And on this, I have the workspace. I have the section, full section, desktop section here. Okay. If the deployment finish, we can see it. So let me see if we have it here. Okay, so that is because I'm connected to via the client, so it's basically locked me out. Let me refresh it. I saw the pen here. So it can be Paint, it can be Visual Studio Code, it can be anything that the application which is compatible with the Windows 10 multi-section can run. Those what I click on. Sorry, I need to refresh this. Do it again. So maybe through the browser, and with my connectivity at home is not too fast, but then we can use it. Right? In meanwhile, let me allow me to show you the full desktop experience that I have right now. That is the full desktop experience I have. So I already installed the Microsoft Teams. But to install Microsoft Teams, you need to do a few steps. It's not just download and install, right? So you basically need to download the Microsoft Teams for the VDI deployment, which is in the download because that I already downloaded here, right? And I run this script. So it's also on doc.microsoft.com, right? On this, I specify the file and the location, the path to the file, and own user is one. So I go to deploy it. And the same on the registry, I need to add Teams under the key local machine with the software and Microsoft, and I add the a key, which is the name is is WVD environment with the case the value is 1. Let me open it. Yeah. It's 32-bit with the D word. Right. So let me check how it's work. Is it work? Yeah. So there's my team. So I can chat with someone. Let me check with the box. Hi. Yeah, I can chat, and also I can make some call. So I haven't finished the setting up with the yeah. If you have a voice, you can hear it about this, right? So I haven't connect with the microphone. You can also enable the microphone with some script. Okay. So that is Microsoft Teams, and also we have OneDrive here. I can do upload some file and documentation here. So that is for, I don't know why it takes so long. Let me check later. But then inside of Microsoft, we also use the WVD at a jump box. Let me show you, right? So with some application, critical application with requires more secure, right? Like SAP application for dev and test, and also for the partner to connect into the SAP system to do some monitoring or coding or things. We basically can use the WVD as a solution to provide them with a jump box, the really secure environment, even with a bank, right? Maybe because of the sharing or calling, my connection is not good, but then it's something we have inside of Microsoft. Let me try to connect to AZURE. So when I log in, because I already log in into the user, but when I first log in, right, it will take some time. If it is my first login, they will need to attach the profile, the load the profile, right? It can take around 30 seconds, up to 1 minute, less than 1 minute. But if it's several times, is the second time or third time that I connect to this, so it won't take that long, right? So basically here we have a jump box. Let me try to do some kind of command line, right? Oh, well, forgot. I don't have the administration, but let me try to just execute it as my user. So basically, at the admin, right? We not support Intune yet. Is still on the roadmap, but you can basically use the GPO. That is a group policy to kind of block some application or to do some configuration with the VM, right, as the client, at the view of the client, not the view of the VM. So okay, that is the V2. That is some experience that you have. If you follow exactly what I'm have done, so you basically can spin up the POC for the customer or for your personal use, right? And more. What is more? So we have the MSI X app attach is public in GA, right? And also we're going to have an app attach. So you can see that all application running on this the client, the physical client is the app attach. Right? Basically, is the application on WVD, not on that client. So with the Surface Go, I can easy to run some software like Adobe Lightroom or even the Photoshop with APAC. Everything is up and running, ready for me to use. And on Outlook is optimized for the non-persistent environment, which is the multi-section. If you go with other vendor, you don't have that beautiful and wonderful experience. Right? Easy to use with the OneDrive. You can switch from the device to the device or switch to the hospital, the VDI. And it is a multi-section. Right? So the best practice is not let the more than 6 user if you like, and with the D8 V2 V3. Okay. So practical deployment. When we understand about how we do the POC, or we're setting up a WVD, right? So when we talk to the customer, when we go to the customer office, they ask us a couple questions about the architecture, how we deploy it. So basically, we have first identity strategy, as I mentioned earlier. We have 3 options. The first option is spin up a DC, which what I have done with my demo. Spin up a DC in your Azure subscription and use the Azure AD Sync, AD Connect, right? So, but this one is only for a small customer, really small customer, or the POC purpose. Some customer they need to work around, like I mentioned about the Myanmar teams, so they need to create a DC on it to avoid some latency and replicate the on-premise DC. The second option is go with a purely cloud AD, which is the Azure AD and Azure Domain Service. And the cost is a fixed charge per month. So with the standard one, you will have 2 forests. And the last one, the tough one, that if they are a bank, really big, right? They have a lot of handling policy, and they need to use WVD for set of user or OU. So you need to do hybrid connection. You need to establish the VPN side to side or the express route. No ADDS or domain controller required in Azure. You can use on-premise one. So I have some table for broad and con and targeted customer that I mentioned. So with the Azure purely, the Azure AD and Azure Domain Service, so we will have the born in cloud customer. And almost the biggest customer will go with a hybrid scenario like this. So recommendation for identity setup for the cloud-based organization, go with the Azure AD and Azure ADDS, and of course, go with the Azure file share, not Azure NetApp files, because if the customer not big enough, you don't need that big storage, and we save cost, right? With the hybrid one, go with the Azure AD, connect the sync with the on-premise one. And establish the VPN side to side or express route, depend on the customer budget, and also the requirement regarding to networking latency. Right? A single sign-on, yes. You can do with the federation. You can go with the Azure ADDS or the ADDS on-premise. And if you go with MFA, so with the V1, they will require to have the ADFS. Keep in mind that. After you choose the identity strategy, so come with that will be the network requirement. So if you go with the hybrid one, you will need to have the APAC route or site-to-site VPN, right? Or you go with the Azure AD domain service. So later, I will give you some example about the pricing and sizing, the bill of material. We provide some link, some place that you can go to do some calculation, provide you with information about the network for WVD. Okay. The network sizing with the experience estimator for the nearest region of the WVD hospital and the end user, and also the available bandwidth on the customer side, which will be related to the type of application, the storage I/O, the memory. This can be the display's resolution, is how many string that they want to connect into to use the VDI, the WVD, and amount of user account, and also the peak concurrency, the off-peak and on-peak, right? So as I mentioned, APAC logic technology will provide you with a profile container for the user profile and for Office 365 profile, right? And app masking, so it's basically help you to reduce the effort of image packaging, and also you need to maintain a lot of image for application, right? And Java reaction. So some application like Oracle, they require you to run a specific Java version. So it's also help. And after that, you need to choose the storage for the profile and also for the user data, the user data on the WVD hospital. So as I mentioned, go with Azure files. You will need to have the Azure ADDS, domain service on Azure. And I mentioned about the network from the customer side, it is the IOPS of the storage. Right? The higher latency is nearly 3,000,006 millisecond, millisecond, yeah. And then, but it's easy to migrate. You just need to use some tool, and then it's easy to migrate, to manage, to move the file from on-premise one to Azure, right? Or you use the file server, which is the server on Azure or the server on-premise, replica to Azure. And Azure NetApp files is only for really big customer, which is offer you 300K IOPS with low latency, right? And region dependent. So that is the architecture for the storage. If classic VDI VM, you will need to have the Azure storage for the base block, which is also to support your OS stick. With the APAC logic profile, will store on the VXD, right? But if you go with Azure files, you don't need to have the data lakes here. Okay, that is a comparison about the Azure file and NetApp. But the major thing is like the IOPS and also the cost. So keep in mind that if you go with a NetApp file, so it requires minimum capacity pool like 4 terabyte with a cost. Yeah. So this table also provide you with some comparison kind of element for you to consider. I will quickly go through it. And as I mentioned about the hospital load balancing, the breadth and the depth, right? The breadth is suitable for best end user experience, and the depth is will provide you with the amount of number of section hosts, maximize it. Right? And the hospital, if you have different department inside the organization, right? That is HR department, there's like developer department things. So you can specify them into a different hospital. Yeah. So the pricing and sizing, something that we need to consider when we go to pricing and sizing, right? So first is about a customer current contract with Microsoft. Is it CSP or EA, right? The reason, so yes, we here, so we choose the Southeast Asia, but the customer, if they have a branch or the other kind of M&A departments somewhere else in Canada or US, so you need to decide to host the VM hostable near it to in a near place of the end user, and the reason will affect to the cost, right? The total user count, how many users that will go to use the WVD? Is it a hospital? Is it a multi-section or individual one-on-one personal VDI? What is the percentage of the peak concurrency? How many time, how many hours that they work on the VDI per day or per week? Some specific requirement in the VM families. Do they go with a reserve instant, right? And they need some kind of scaling or some AZURE automations here. Profile storage requirement, as I mentioned earlier, and the network egress. So there is some recommendation for us to, if they go with a multi-section, the recommendation is here, maximum per VCBU that we have 6 user, and it is the family, the VM family, right? And also the AZURE instance that we go is a D2S or D8S V3, right? Or the medium one or heavy one or power one. If they go with single section or personal VDI, so we recommend at least that 2 physical CPU core per VM. And it is the default value that Microsoft put into the template when you go to the portal and you go with the Windows Virtual Desktop deployment, right? So with the multi-section, we have a D8S V3. With the single section, we have a D2S V3, and the maximum user per vCPU is 6. The OS disk, the profile data disk, and also some storage. Basically, the storage option is go with the AZURE NetApp files, but you can replace it with a file server scale out or the AZURE files. Okay. So with the heavy graphic, you will go with the NV6 with the CPU, the VM family support the GPU, right? This is an example for 100 user when we do the pricing. Let me quick going through this. The slide will send to you, so we have more time. And also, if you have a question, you can send it to me or send it to Nguyen, right? So we can answer you. So with if the customer have different type of worker, right? We mentioned that there's 4 type of worker that we support related to the user profile that we have. So with the task worker, we have a data entry, we have a contact center employee, right? So you can go and identify the type of user, the end user, and put it into this table, right? Don't bother by this. Just put it task worker, knowledge worker, professional worker, and power worker, right? And also go with the personal storage that they use per user. And after you do it, right, you come up with the planning designs, and you compare with the sizing guidance here, so you can make and choose the right CPU, memory, and also the storage that they need to use. So this is from one of the customer that I work before. So they go with the WVD pool, 100 user, right? Is the price is not right. So this is not for 100 user. That is my mistake. So this is basically is less than 100 user, but please don't pick up the estimate cost here. But give you the vision of doing this, right? So we have the VM hospital, we have the virtual machine, which is the domain controller on AZURE, right? We have a storage account for domain controller. We have the file server scale out, which is I use the file server setup on Azure also. We have some NAV for the firewall. We have the virtual machine because I have a custom master image and I need to spin up a clean Hyper-V environment to do the image to sit prep and then to go back and deploy to the VM hospital, right? So I need to set up a virtual machine for the master image and master image snapshot. And if I go with some management tool like Singapore, I need to set up some app service and the VPN gateway for connecting between the on-premise and the Azure. I also estimate some kind of bandwidth here with the cost. And I recommend that the customer will go with the standard support. So if they have any problem, they can raise the ticket to get a support from Azure team, right? Or if they go with the migration, we do have some guidance here, but the best practice is go with the lakeside assessment and Azure migration tool with the Azure Cloud Adoption Framework. Okay. So mention about the assessment, we have lakeside, which is a sidetrack. Will help you to understand about the customer environment, application they have, the user they have. About the performance of the current system or the trend of the users, everything, diagnostic data. So you use it if you go to migrate the RDS on-premise or some Citrix or VMware to WVD native one. Right. So you better understand about the application, the data, the workspace feature that they need, some business requirement, user group, the common characteristics of the group of user or department, some device information that they have, the work style, and comparative analytics that they will provide with the sidetrack lakeside. If you go with V1, we have the management UI we support, and we publish the source code in GitHub. Right. Let me quickly go through it. You can after this section, you can go and try to spin up the WVD Hospital V1 and you test it out, right? With this. This is the step for the management UI to deploy. And basically, it's need the app service to run it, right? You assign the user after you deployed it. And then you have a link to access to this web UI. This, right? And what you have seen from the demo, from the video, is it similar? Yeah, quite similar, right? So we have new feature to support the management in the V2. The V1 will be kind of after June. Maybe the V1 will be deprecated, and then the customer who on the V1 will ready to migrate to the V2. And we also support some migration tool, which is will be public after we have the V2 GA. Right? So I quickly go through it. You can go with the Azure Monitor to do some kind of visualize the data to give you insight about the VM, the container application, and so on. Right. I mentioned about Sipago as the free management service that you can use from a partner. You go to the marketplace to create it. It's not totally free, but then that is really kind of thing that the customer, the partner in the V1 will go to use. Right? I also quickly go through it. So let me first, before I go to Nerdio, right? Let me firstly show you this. So on this one, go back to this. If I need to do some kind of monitoring for the V2, right? I basically only need to create a diagnostic with this here. It's like a diagnostic for WVD APAC DHE. Let me send to log analytics, not archive stream thing. Before to do it, I need to create a log analytic workspace. So basically, I give you the step that you can use the AZURE log analytics and also the diagnostic information is set up here. You don't need to worry about the management UI anymore. And then upcoming with a new feature is basically will help you to do monitoring and support you that you don't need to worry about the management UI anymore. The same thing. So with NIITSL, with the lag scale of the customer, that I strongly suggest that you go with NIITSL, right? NIITSL is really kind of mature WVD value-added solution and a partner to provide you with automation in terms of the setting up the WVD, regardless V1 or V2, and also management capability in terms of the user, in terms of service, the resources that you can and also they have the external API. If you have some kind of SOC on premise or thing, you can connect to the API. Okay. So I share you with some caps or some shrink because I don't have the subscription right now. It's only support with the customer and with a free, right? 3 months for the customer if they get support from Microsoft, or they will need to pay with a fee, right? Okay, so this is the last slide of this section. So in this section, we talk about the WVD design. We talk about how we do WVD architecture. We can do design, resizing things, right? We walk you through some implementation steps with the image from AZURE gallery, which is using the Windows 10 image with the Office 365 Pro Plus on a marketplace. And in addition, we have the profile management with the APAC logic, not go deep, but then give you some solution to look into. We did mention about the custom image, but we not go detail. But then if we have next section, I can show you more on the custom image and how it works, and also with the APAC and MSIX profile. We did mention about some management and monitoring capability, but not in depth. And scale option, the solution can be expanded for additional desktop. Okay, so that's all for the section.